What a call you made today to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. As always, coming to you from the studio that is second to none, provided by First Star Logistics, because we have the man. The whole Bengal nation is buzzing about Scott Peters, and rightfully so. Offensive line coach extraordinaire. I mean, what a pedigree he has. Played for Jim McNally, coached with Bill Callahan. Whew, pretty strong. Two of the best offensive line coaches that ever done it in the National Football League. This guy also, I mean, you talk about martial arts, you talk about UFC. He was a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu champion. I mean, he talks about that. World champion 2 different times. And then he also talks about how he takes his martial arts expertise and biomechanics, physiology, applies it to football. No, football, just like any sport, starts with feet, ends with your hands. He is an expert in hand-to-hand combat. And some of the techniques and things that he's going to be providing for these offensive linemen with the Cincinnati Bengals, all you look for as a player is a coach to give you tools for the toolbox. And man, Scott Peters has a lot of tools. Those toolboxes are going to be loaded. They're going to have to put on tool belts to take the tools that are overflowing from the toolboxes to put on those tool belts. But you can never have enough. You know, these defensive linemen are physical freaks. They all have moves. You have to counter all those moves. He talks about all of that. Man, we were able to sit down with Scott Peters for quite a while, talk about his football background, his football philosophy, what he expects here in Cincinnati, some of the personnel he's going to be working with here in the offensive line with the Cincinnati Bengals, the upcoming draft, upcoming free agency, moving his family to Cincinnati. There's so many things going on in the life of Scott Peters right now. We are very, very thankful that he carved a little bit of time to join us. You're going to be thankful as well. We certainly do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always, coming to you from the studios that they provide for us, which we greatly appreciate. And boy, did you make a great decision to join us today, because we have got Scott Peters, new offensive line coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'll tell you what, the guy that played for Jim McNally and a guy that coached with Bill Callahan, in my mind, the two gurus, the two of the greatest offensive line coaches to ever coach the sport. Man, that's a heck of a pedigree, coach. You're not only a great player. I mean, you were all-conference player in college. You get drafted in the 4th round by the Philadelphia Eagles. You play 7 years in the NFL, and you play for McNally, and now you've coached with Coach Callahan for a stretch of time. Man, I got all the respect in the world for you, sir.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity to come on the show and be a part of this.
So let's talk about that first and foremost. I mean, how fortunate do you feel during your playing days with the New York Giants? You get a chance to work with Jim McNally. In my mind, is as good a coach in terms of technique and fundamentals and scheme and everything. And then now you get a chance during your coaching career to hook up with Bill Callahan for a period of time. I mean, that's pretty nice. That's 1 + 1 = 3, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, that was a blessing, and I didn't realize. I mean, at the time, I felt blessed to be able to play for Coach McNally. Actually, I had a kind of a pick where I could go. I remember I had a couple options. I was like, I could have went to Baltimore, another team or two, and I'm like, I want to go to the Giants because of McNally. Because my agent was like, this is the best line coach in the league. You're going to learn everything, and I was a little frustrated leaving the Eagles, feeling like, gosh, I just want to learn the best tools of the trade. And I had that chance to play for Jim, and it didn't disappoint. Got a chance to play for him. Unfortunately, it was only a year, 1 season, but the things that he taught me in that time were invaluable to me as a player going forward, because I was young. I was young in my career, and I was so impressed that he had answers for everything. He had tools for everything. He had applications, and just the fundamental techniques, the development that I took in there was huge. And then I had some really good coaches throughout my playing career, but nobody like him where he gave you those those answers that you wanted. I mean, because I think everybody wants to be good.
Right.
Everybody. I mean, it's hard enough. You want somebody that's going to help you, not just tell you, hey, come on, and he's screaming at you, telling you to block the guy. So he would give you
Right.
the specifics, which was great. And so I did play, about 5 more seasons after Jim left, and after my career was over, reconnected with Jim, which was great. Had a chance to get reacquainted with him, and I always kind of longed for that. But my last seasons, I'm like, man, I just wish I could relink with him. But he ended up retiring, and he spent all that time doing, he's still doing crazy stuff online, obviously teaching the world
Right.
with Twitter. But I mean, he was part of the Cool Clinic, so he started the Cool Clinic, and I got connected with him, and reunited with him, and just all we did was talk ball every day. I mean, everything was technique, and just it was awesome. So then when he and I developed a relationship, I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but he connected me with Bill, and there's a bunch of pieces that kind of went in between there. But absolute, to answer your question, the absolute blessing to be a part of that, to get connected with Jim, and then obviously Callahan, who's the best line coach in the league, in my opinion, now, and maybe ever, because he's unbelievable, Coach Callahan. So very fortunate.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's you've got a pedigree that is second to none. The other thing that is very interesting, a big part of your dynamic, you won 2 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championships. I mean, tell us about obviously between your playing career and your coaching career, you got into the martial arts and Jiu-Jitsu and all that sort of thing. But a 2-time world champion, and how do you apply it? I guess, how did you get into it, and how do you apply it to football? The physiology of of jujitsu, and the body mechanics, and how it helps you be a better football player.
Well, I want to clarify one thing. So I was it was no gi, submission wrestling, grappling. So that's
Gotcha.
kind of another word, but jujitsu is like, everybody knows what that means. I think they understand that. So jujitsu is technically with a gi on. I did it with a t-shirt and shorts. So that's what.
Gotcha.
But same idea. You're going out there, and yeah, the goal is to submit the other man, and it was how I got there. So when I was playing, I had a number of injuries, and really all kind of was with one spot. It was my ankle. So I had a surgery called microfracture surgery,
Yeah.
which I don't even think they do anymore, because it wasn't didn't work well for me. And unfortunately, I had to be non-weight bearing for a long period of time after that surgery. So I had it done twice throughout my 7-year career.
Wow.
It was a real disappointment. But what I ended up, when you're told you can't be on your feet for that kind of time, it's like, well, do the hand bike, and that'll make you go insane. So I remember when I was with the Panthers playing, it was my 5th season, and I had to go in for a routine. They thought it was a routine ankle cleanup after my, I had microfracture surgery after my 2nd season. And then again in my 5th season, woke up from surgery, informed that they had to redo it, kind of thought my career was done. That was what
Man,
they told me. So that
man.
was terrible news, obviously, when you're coming out of anesthesia, to be told that.
Yeah.
And, so what I did was, I was on injured reserve there in Carolina. And, I'm like, well, what can I do? And I didn't want the hand bike. Like I said, the previous time I had it, it was like, still tormented from that, going in there and just working the hand bike for an hour a day. That's terrible. So I go,
Right.
let me see if I can do jujitsu. I always watched, I knew it was on the ground. I knew, it was pretty cool. Kind of watched the UFC. I'm like, how are these guys doing this? These guys have these submissions. I don't even know what they're doing, but I'd like to learn that. So I go into this gym, this club in Charlotte, and it was great. I just got in there, and it was a bunch of older men, guys at least older than me. I mean, twice my age, and a lot smaller than me too. And I'm about 300 pounds. I could bench over 500 pounds. And I get in there, and I get armbarred and choked and submitted by all these little guys that are bankers. They're bankers. I'm like, wow. I mean, I've never gotten dominated in any way, shape, or form like that, where I just I was helpless. And but they were good guys, and I enjoyed it. And it didn't put weight on any pressure on or stress on my ankle. So I got a chance to train and kind of focus on that. And as I was making my recovery. And like I said, I thought I was done playing. So, I trained, I did that season, rehab there, did jiu-jitsu, got back to Phoenix where I kind of lived. And I'm like, I got to find a gym. I got to get started again doing that. And as I kind of figure out my next move, and because I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now that I'm retired, I guess. I mean, I had to kind of face those facts, but I wanted to do something physical, and I wanted to do something that I enjoyed so I could put some passion into that, as I kind of, and also just like as continue to develop my ankle, because I was just coming off that surgery. And so I found a place, started training, and I thought, well, I'm going to open up a gym, which was crazy. So I start that process, and but I competed and trained, and really just trained every day. And I got a call from the Cardinals. It was about a year later, 1 year after my surgery, and it was in training camp in August. And they go, "Hey, do you want to play?" And I'm like, my agent goes, "You want to play?" I go, "Well, what do you mean? What do you mean?" I mean, I kind of was like, "Yeah, maybe." I mean, with who? He's like, "The Cardinals." I'm like, "What? Right down the street?" So
Wow.
I said, "Sure." And right now, mind you, I lost weight, so I got down to about 270, which is way too small to play, obviously, offensive line.
Right.
So, and I had not run or lifted weights in an entire year, but I was feeling great. And I'm going, yeah, why not? He goes, if you go down and you pass the physical, they'll sign you right now. You'll go up to Flagstaff for training camp. And I'm like,
Wow.
what do I got to lose? Why not? So I go in there for the appointment, and they go, all right, stick your left foot in the machine. I'm like, okay. I'm going, in my mind, I'm like, well, it's my right ankle, So they come back, they go, hey, the ankle looks great. Are you sure you had a problem there? I go, no problem. I mean, yeah, no problem. I'm good. So they send me up to camp. They sign me. Russ Grimm is my coach, and he goes, hey, man, where's the rest of you? I thought you were 300. I go, oh, I'm good. And he looked at me like sideways, and I got on the field. Honestly, played. My ankle felt so much better. All the things I had learned and developed. You do a lot of strengthening around the ankle. You get proprioception. You're on the mats. You're using your feet like you would hands. You develop a lot of dexterity of the feet, strengthening of the ankle. That all just came by virtue of training in jiu-jitsu. Got out in the grass, and honestly, all the hand fighting and the leverage technique stuff I was working on helped me a ton. I probably played my best football even. And so I continued my career, played 2 more seasons there, kind of finished off that. And I did start a gym. I started an MMA gym in Scottsdale and ran that for 5 years. And but in the process there, as I did that, as I kind of made a segue out of football as a player, and I thought, well, I'm just a former player. I don't want to, and I'm in a world I don't really understand. The martial arts. I'm like, I'm not an expert or anything. I'm an enthusiast, and I want to really qualify myself. So I thought I'm going to start competing, and I brought in some guys. I found a couple guys from Brazil. I brought up one guy was big. He was about 300 pounds, black belt. And I'm like, I'm just going to train every single day. Wow. We had other martial arts programs in there. We had everything kind of that comprises MMA. You had Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, wrestling, judo, all that stuff, right? And I wanted to learn it all, but I thought, well, the passion I kind of got into was the submission wrestling stuff. So I started training every day, and I thought, well, I'm just going to jump out there, right, and go for a big tournament right away, So I entered into this. It was called Grappler's Quest, and it was in Las Vegas, and it was a big event. About 20,000 competitors showed up, and I jumped in. I'm like, I'm just going to do the advanced super heavyweight division, which was really not that big. It's anybody that's 204 pounds and up could enter into that super heavyweight division, and I'm like, I'm just going to see how I do, So I did pretty well in that. I won. I made it to the finals. I submitted a guy from Ohio State. He was a wrestler named Tommy Rollins, who they said I think he might have had the most wins of any wrestler in Ohio State's history. He was a heavyweight.
Wow.
He won.
Wow.
He was an Olympian and did a bunch of things. He was really good, and I choked him. So I was able to tap him out, and it was like, then everybody's like, how'd you beat this guy? I don't know who he was, which is probably good because I probably would have freaked out, But he was really an excellent wrestler, and so after that, I kind of got contacted by Brock Lesnar's training camp. At the time, he was the heavyweight champ. And so they said, hey, there's just so many guys in the world, not many guys in the world with skills on the ground like that have the size that you have. So we'd love it if you'd come up and work with Brock. So I agreed and went up there, started training with him, helped him for some fights. And I went over and worked with Cain Velasquez, who's another UFC champion. And then most recently, when I was with the Browns, as a coach, like fast forwarding a little bit, but I worked with Stipe Miocic up there and helped him kind of prepare for John Jones before they canceled it. That was last season or in 2023. But the long story short of it is I wanted to qualify myself. I wanted to compete, and that helped me kind of make that integration into the world. And I traveled all over the place and trained with guys, and it was fun. It was fun, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm owning a gym, running a gym, and I'm missing football. So when I had a bunch of buddies that would come back that I played with and say, hey, let me learn some stuff, and I just started looking at football much differently than I had when I played, because the biomechanics and the efficiency of the movements, the training methodologies, all the things that these guys were doing constantly, the way they trained. I mean, it was drill, and spar, refining, looking at the details of the mechanic, like so the subtle details. The difference between landing an armbar in a competition and not is like your elbow, the rotation of your elbow by a fraction of by a millimeter, So those kind of things maximized everything. The body mechanics of it all were so critically important. And I'm like, in football, I was like, hey, just go out there like a hammerhead and smash this guy, hit him harder than he hits you. And I'm like, and kind of going back to what I said about, we're in this gym in Charlotte where these guys are half my size. They couldn't lift, not even close. They weren't that kind of, they didn't have the physical stature or strength, but they could do these things to me and I couldn't contest it. Those things matter, So as I started to give those, I'm like, well, let me try to apply something that I learned here into something over here in this world in football that unfortunately I didn't get a chance to use when I played, but help some buddies out that were playing. And they go, wow, man, that really helped me. And so I started I kept rolling on that trend, and I got worked with some college programs. Ultimately, and helped those programs out from coaches I knew. They saw results. Excuse me. And then got an opportunity to speak at the Cool Clinic right there in Cincinnati. Bob Wiley was a coach in the league for a long time. So Bob, he showed up in my gym and he goes, hey, Scott, and I didn't know him. He had heard about some of the things I was doing out there and, doing clinics and things like that. And he goes, would you like to present at the Cool Clinic? So I said, sure. I didn't know what it was, but that's when I reunited with McNally. That was in 2010, I want to say, 2010-ish. And went out there, got in front of the audience. I was blown away. 500 offensive line coaches from around the world, really.
Wow.
All the top NFL coaches taught. And I'm going, how do I even have a platform here? It was unbelievable. But that's when I got back with McNally, and I hadn't seen him since like 2003 or so when we went our separate ways. Their staff got fired, and it was amazing to reunite with him, and we probably spoke every day since. And then in about 2014, he goes, I got to connect you with Bill Callahan. So, that was unbelievable. So Bill had showed up. Bill came down to my gym and just spent a day with me there. And then after that, we were connected for forever. So, he would bring me into his programs. He brought me to Washington there, started consulting for other teams as well. And then when he had the opportunity to get to Cleveland, he invited me to be his assistant. So that's where sorry, it probably took too long to explain, but that's the history. And so got a chance and an opportunity. Now I'm going to learn the trade of being an offensive line coach. So, I had the knowledge of the things that I had knowledge of, but then now you got to learn to be a professional coach and learn all these other, many, many other things that kind of go into being a line coach. And so Bill was, Jim was an unbelievable mentor, and Bill, unbelievable mentor. To your point about having two mentors like that, it's quite a pedigree, at least an opportunity to learn from the best and guys I can still talk to today with and bounce ideas off of. And they're great people.
That's a heck of a foundation to have, man, for the building that you built. That's extraordinary. The one thing that is obvious, and I played. We got something in common. I played for Coach McNally when he was here in Cincinnati, and he took us to Super Bowl 16. Remember that offensive line, and I'm playing next to Anthony Munoz, and Max Montoya's over at the other guard position. I'm like, that's the best offensive lineman that's ever played the game. And this is the best guard that's ever played the game over here. This is unbelievable. And the two words that were real powerful and real strong to me that I've taken, basically applied to a lot of things in life is through Coach McNally. I learned to respect. It's like respect your coach, respect your teammates, respect what they're all about, and respect their talents, and then trust. Trust everything about them. It's like you're only as good as the guy next to you. You're only as good as the coach that's coaching you, and all those sort of dynamics. I mean, that's he had a big impact on the way I looked at not just football but life in general. And those kind of things. That's invaluable, isn't it?
No question. I mean, respect and trust. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you get it all. I mean, to play at this level, I mean, obviously, all that stuff is kind of intertwined. But you had a great coach and somebody and obviously you were playing next to Munoz too, which is unbelievable. And I've had a chance to get to know Anthony over the years, and what a great guy he is. So that had to be fun having Jim, an innovator at that time. Was I'm sure you guys were doing some crazy and wild things but they worked, right? So
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, we called him like the mad scientist. Here comes Jimmy. He's crazy, man. He's psycho, and he wants us to try this. And it's like, man, this stuff works now.
Yeah.
Nobody else is doing it. This stuff works. It's like I was reading about you a little bit, and this little phrase right here: dismantle the opponent's integrity. When I read that, I went, oh man, I love this guy. Yeah. I love this guy.
Well, I think I might have been talking about their anatomical integrity, but hey, if you can break their will while you're at it, that's even better. But it's definitely, again, that's more of something I kind of looked at when you're in jiu-jitsu. It's like that's how they did that to me when I was that big.
Yeah.
They put me in a bad spot. Like for example, I learned this from an Olympic wrestler. I threw this guy on the mat. I couldn't believe I threw this guy. Like, this guy's an Olympic heavyweight wrestler, and I got him on a throw. He was not happy. He was pissed, and I didn't know what I did. I mean, I knew what I did, but I didn't have all the follow-up tools. And I'm like, oh, great. Right. What's he going to do to me? And I went for it again because I'm like, I'm going to try that again, And he just did this little movement. He tilted my head just a little bit this way. Couldn't get it. And afterwards, he told me, he goes, you know why you couldn't throw me again? I go, no. He goes, I tilted your spine just a little bit, just a little curvature in the spine, and now you're not as strong. I go, wow. I picked up something there. I mean, obviously, it's stuff we kind of know. If you're going to do a heavy back squat, you don't want your shoulders discombobulated. You want to be square. You want to have integrity of the spine. So when you're operating out there, you want to make sure all your postures are optimal. That way you're getting the most out of your body. And just like you would on a heavy back squat, right? Well, now we want to also simultaneously destroy the posture of the man across from you. You want to be able to attack him, make him weak, even when he's stronger than you potentially physically. Those are the kinds of things that we're talking about, and attacking things that where they're soft. That's kind of the premise of jiu-jitsu. You want to isolate the arm from the man because your body's stronger than his arm, whereas your body may not be stronger than his body. But if you can isolate that from the man, now you've got a chance. So there's just more of a line of thinking that way in how we attack people.
That's incredible. And because, as a player in the National Football League, what you're looking for from a coach is tools for your toolbox,
Yes.
And you're talking about so many additional tools. That's what I always loved and respected about McNally. He'd come to mini camp after we had a full season of work, and he'd come with like 3 additional things, and it's like, man, 3 more tools for the toolbox. It's like it might have been taken, a technique to another level. It might be a whole new technique, whatever it was. It was like, man, he always brings something to the table. He's always got tools that he's throwing out there. And all of a sudden, man, you got a toolbox that's like, I can counter that. I can counter that. I'm watching tape. Oh, that move, I got the counter for that. I mean, and if you're playing sports, the number one thing you have to have is confidence. If you go into any competition, you're confident. That's 99% of the battle. If you go in unsure, you're done, man, right?
I agree. I mean, there's levels to the game. Obviously, there's if you look at it from a holistic standpoint, you go, there's black belts out there. There's guys that have all the stuff. Defensive linemen have some unique moves, and you watch how they play, how they operate, and you're like, wow, that guy's got an unbelievable. He beats everybody with this. Well, how do I survive that, and not just survive that, dominate this guy and take that away? And you want to, and you can't, obviously it doesn't happen day one, but when you build those fundamentals, the foundation level skills, and then you have tools like you mentioned, counters, which is something that we take a ton of pride in and also a lot of work in, and how you can disable a guy or counter every rush that you see in a manner, because that's similar to, again, like I'll go back to wrestling or something like that, or jiu-jitsu. If the guy that has one attack, he's done. Like I told you, I had one throw against that Olympic guy. I didn't have 2. as I started to learn more, okay, now if I have 3 ways to take a guy down, or if I have 3 ways to set a guy, if I have 3 different strikes that I can use, or if I have 3 different counters as they chain rush you, because they're not going to stop off one rush. So
Right.
how do I counter the rush? This one leads to the next one. The one thing that we do have an advantage of as offensive linemen is we know the nature of the defender. So if I do this, then he'll do that, and then I'll do this, and then he'll do that. So you understand the dance, and if you can know the dance and you can train the moves and you understand the chain counters, then you can, and you develop those through drilling. Then now it should become a natural response where, okay, and you should have better options and better chances, even guys that may be facing more superior talent than them. As long as they understand the nature and they have the tools, it definitely helps. It doesn't predict always success. As you know, there's some guys that are freaks out there, but gives
Sure.
guys the best chance,
Right. Right. There's always some genetic phenomenon, man. It's like this dude's from another planet. It doesn't matter. It's
Yep.
like I need a weapon. I need something besides just myself here.
No
This is
question.
crazy. So you are unbelievable. Your track record has shown that you take, guys picked in the later rounds or college free agents or whatever the case may be, and develop these guys. And then you'll also take a veteran player that's enjoyed success, but take him, to another level. I'm sure the common denominator with all these guys is their passion for the game, right? I mean, you have to have passion for the game and a willingness to learn like you did, just like you. I mean, is that what you look for kind of first and foremost? Is that intangible about, does this guy love the game of football or not?
Football character and intelligence are the 2 things that separate everyone. I mean, if you take a guy with, like, oh wow, the guy's got size, genetic, gifts and length and whatever strength, that's fine. But like, to me, like, before you even go there, you want to look at the football character and intelligence, because that kind of predicts the ceiling. How good does a guy want to be? So even players that may not have all the attributes that you're looking for that are optimal, like those guys that are willing to do it and they want to do it, they love the game, they have the passion. That's huge, because those guys are going to work for it, and then they're going to keep grinding on it and keep getting better. And then pretty soon you go, wow, that guy's really ascended, and that's for sure. That's the number one thing, and that's one of the most exciting things about being part of the Bengals as their coach now, because the guys there's great character in the room, as I know. I mean, I've been told, and having had conversations with a number of the guys, it's pretty obvious that that's the case. So I'm really excited about that.
Did you ever think about coaching the game of football when you were playing football, or I mean, you talked about your the evolution of how you got into coaching and all that, but when did coaching really start, coaching in the National Football League, coaching offensive linemen, when did that like really hit to you?
Well, it didn't happen as a player, I can tell you that. I mean, I didn't think about that. I was like, in fact, a lot of players think, oh, I'd never do that. That's crazy, because what it was for me was I always liked helping people, and I always liked teaching, and I didn't know that I knew that. I know that I wanted to teach or do those things. But when you start to see that, like, you can benefit somebody, and I started to learn. And I also kind of thought, as a player, man, I really at times wished I had someone that taught me X, Y, and Z. So those were kind of underlying passions. My mom was a teacher, and I've had good mentorship and teachers in my life, and I thought those are kind of underlying passions. But then I had something to teach, and then it was never a consideration. I ran 2 businesses. I was doing that, and I'm like, coaching was not on the radar until I really got to know Jim and Bill. And then I really just immersed into that. I'm like, the next step is coaching, man. I want to prove these things. I'm going to clinics around the country and showing everybody stuff. I'm like, well, put your money where your mouth is, like, I'm a trainer, and but now I want to, like, okay, I'm going to enter the arena, and for me to be able to do that under Bill was awesome. And yeah, I mean, you're accountable. It's easy to go into a clinic and say, hey, here's a bunch of techniques, Godspeed and good luck, and you can leave and you hope it works out for them. But now you're in the trenches with the guys, and like, so that's what's exciting. So and I love being a teacher. I love teaching guys stuff, giving them tools, watching them succeed, helping them evolve and grow as players, as men, and helping their families. So that's something I really take a lot of pride in.
Well, as we both know, and as everybody knows, I mentioned the term genetic phenomenon. The National Football League's filled with them. I mean,
Oh yeah,
and the Bengals have a couple of offensive tackles that are unique physically. There's no question about that. Orlando Brown, Amarius Mims. How excited are you to work with those guys?
I'm extraordinarily excited. I can't even put words to it. They're both really good people too, which is awesome. And they have the length, they have the size, the movement, the strength, the skill set. You know, they have all the intangibles there. Obviously, they have the passion for the game, but the talent is there, and that is hard to say for. You can't say that for every team. I mean, you know, finding offensive tackles, there's just not a lot of human beings walking planet Earth that have those dimensions, that have that
Yep.
capacity, and then have the character to go with it and the intelligence to go with it. And that's a blessing to have that, especially you know, when you're trying to throw the ball. You know, on the edges, as you know, you're facing the best freaks of nature on the other side, and you need to have some freaks of your own too to come to the table with. And have when you have tackles like that, again, like they're not common. And I can assure you, you know, after being in New England and even with the Browns, I mean, if you have guys coming through there all the time, and you know, it's like you just don't find those types of talents, you know, and so to have that is a huge benefit, and to be able to work with them and help them evolve their game too is huge. But like I said, you can find more guys walking around that are 6'3", you know, 310 pounds. You don't find the guys that have the length, the size, the wingspan, the movement, all of those things. And that's why tackles are rare, and they usually go first.
You know, it is amazing in athletics. Just about everything starts with your feet and ends with your hands. I mean, whether you're throwing a ball, catching a ball, shooting a ball, whatever sport, whatever it may be, it's the same thing for offensive linemen. People think, you know, hey, they got to be athletes. It's an athletic endeavor. I mean, it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it, and not everybody can do it. So, I mean, it does. It starts with the feet and it ends with the hands. And as you say, to have two guys that size and other guys in the Bengals offensive line as well that have the, you know, the capability with footwork and with hands and what you're teaching. I mean, the NFL has turned into, I mean, back in the early years when I played, like my rookie year was 74, we're like this.
Right.
You know, you have to put your hands on your chest
Yeah.
and chicken wing people, you know?
Right.
And then they said, well, you can do this, you can extend them, but you can't do this, you can't open it. Now you can do, now it's hand-to-hand combat, right? And I mean, you're a master at hand-to-hand combat.
Well, and length matters, right? Because if you're a boxer, you know, I want to touch you. I want to reach out and touch you at a distance before you have any capacity to get in my range, you know? So having that length, and then it's not enough to have the length. You got to have this, I mean, I look at hand speed. We want to, it's something you can develop, but some guys organically have fast hands. You know, and they have that. Now it's like then precision, then it's mechanics. So I learned this from a boxing coach. It was Roy Jones Jr.'s coach, who I hired at my gym. And he said to me, he goes, I was working boxing, and he was laughing at me because my mechanics sucked. And he goes, man, you couldn't crack an egg with that. I'm like, what? You know, I punch hard. He goes, no, yeah. He goes, punching hard is a byproduct of optimal mechanics plus speed. So if you develop the mechanics of the strike and then you add speed to it, wham! Like you can throw hands with an incredible force without losing posture. So training guys to do that in this league is huge, because you know, guys go out there and they try to throw their hands out there. A lot of times they get smoked, they get whiffed, they get beat. You know, but yes, I mean having the tools of the trade in the regards to hands. That's D line trains it every day. They're trying to be masters of using their hands, and Coach Callahan always said it's a hands league, and he's right. So it's like, well, we better be the best at our trade, you know. So that's something that we take pride in, you know, being able to develop and teach, train, and hopefully employ on the field in competition.
When Jim McNally came to the Bengals, he said, "Hey guys, you don't use your hands at all. And we're able to use our hands more than you use your hands." And he goes, "I don't want guys to lock their arms out like this. So I don't want that. I want." And then he invented the Jimmy Jammer. You know, where you hit and you recoil and you hit, you know, and different levels, hand striking and all that sort of. And I'm like, man, this guy is a genius now. This guy's. And it was like, I want you to pick a target. And I want you to pick a target that's not moving. Pick a target, you know, in the middle of the body, and then you can strike your hands. And I'm like, man, he's taken this to like a doctorate level. You know, it was so impressive. And you've taken it to PhD plus 30. You know, it's crazy what you're doing. I'm really looking forward to how these guys go out there and how they play. I talked with Jimmy, and he said, just go watch Scott at practice. You know, watch him at training camp. He'll be in a full lather just like the players. Nobody works harder than he does on the football field with his players. He goes, he's unbelievable. He's an unbelievable teacher. And that's what coaching is. There's another guy I wanted to throw out there, Cody Ford.
Yeah.
The versatility part of it, like you played center and guard. You know, you played multiple positions. Cody Ford has started games for the Bengals at multiple positions. How valuable is that when you can only keep 9 linemen? You say, well, we got Cody, so maybe we can even get away with 8 with that position versatility. How big a deal is that?
Well, I always tell the players there are no backups in the National Football League. Everybody's going to play. So, like, and gosh, I can tell you last season we had, I don't know how many line combinations there were. It was many. I mean, we had like 4 different left tackles, 4 different left guards, 4 different centers. I mean, that's the extreme, on the extreme end of things. But you need guys that can fill in right away and play as if nothing ever happened to the starter. The guys that can operate at that level with seamless, integration. Because you don't want to have, and so training those guys, it takes smart and intelligent guys to do that. Tough guys that you can bring in that can play multiple positions. Because as you know, how many guys are you suiting up in a game? If you're lucky, you suit up 8 guys. And those guys, the guys that aren't playing are having to service multiple roles,
Yep.
And in addition to potentially being a muscle tight end or something else. So having the versatility is huge. And guys that can do that, it's a requirement. Very few guys are one whole style. I mean, the guys that are elite starters, but otherwise you better, guys need to be trained in all phases. And I think having guys that can snap the ball, very important, making sure you get some guys that can play center too, because that's its own little world. So having somebody who can play both guard and center, those are musts and needs. And I think Cody did a great job for the Bengals. I'm looking forward to working with him if he comes back.
So, Coach, you got so much on your plate, man. You're relocating family. You got wife. You got children. I mean,
yeah.
You're looking at potential real estate options. Where do I want to live here in Cincinnati? What kind of places am I looking at and thinking about? And then you have to evaluate your current players. I'm sure you're going to look at every snap of every player during the season and grade it your way, the way you grade. And then now you're going to prepare for veteran free agency, the combine, the NFL draft. I mean, there's a lot going on, Coach, isn't there?
Yeah, but done it before. We're going to do it again. We're going through it right now, watching the whole season, the tape, and now analyzing everything, looking at the guys and how we can get better and where we can get better, things of that nature. And then obviously you're right. And then it phases into the next chapter, which is going to be free agency, combine, draft, all that stuff. But then you're trying to find a place to live, as you pointed out. So we have, my wife's grown accustomed to that here, so it's all good.
I know the wives are superstars, aren't they? I mean,
yeah,
the wives, they're basically they're taking care of things. They're locking things down. I understand you're a dog lover too. You have dogs?
I do. I got a couple labs. I got 2 black labs. They're great dogs. Always had dogs. Yep. Yeah, they're coming too. They'll be in Cincinnati.
That's awesome.
So, yep.
That's awesome. Coach, I can't thank you enough for carving all the time you carved. I know you got, like I said, you got a laundry list of items, and I'm sure in the trenches with Dave Lapham was not on there at any particular time, but for you to make some time and join us is greatly appreciated. I know the Cincinnati fan base, everybody is extremely excited. Jim McNally has talked about you in such unbelievably positive terms that I'm just excited to get to know you and to watch how you coach your players, and looking forward to a great year with the offensive line, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. Awesome talking to you too, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you better as well.
All right, safe travels, and good luck finding a spot for your family and getting everything evaluated that you need to get evaluated.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.
You too.
Dave Lapham here. While games are over for the season, there's no off-season for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham or First Star Logistics. First Star Logistics gave away great prizes during the season, which will continue with exclusive content in the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So please, do me a favor. Subscribe to In the Trenches, hit the like button, and visit the First Star Media Group YouTube channel for exclusive content and special giveaways.